We are going to talk a little bit about some of the news that is coming out about some coach firings, dudes who got let go after Week 18. What did you make of Arthur Smith's reign of terror in Atlanta finally ending, Logan? And where do you want him to go from here?
Bye, Arthur.
Yeah, see ya.
Bye, Arthur. Yeah.
See ya. Have fun hanging out with DW, am I right? Am I right? Glasses, four-eyed freak.
Wow. That's a deep cut, man. I was not expecting the anteater pull today.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what I do, bro. You're really letting that one sink in. You're pondering it.
No, I'm really just thinking about how Atlanta managed to go 7-10 while being one of the most talented rosters in the National Football League. Wow. Somebody's going to walk in here and win the NFC South with the Falcons next season. I would put my money on it. I mean, I think it is a no-brainer bet for me that the Falcons are going to win the division next season. Derek Carr or whoever the Saints go with, the Saints are getting old. Coaching staff is quarterback is up in the air. Okay. Panthers are going to suck. They have David Tepper as their owner. They're probably going to stink for the next decade. Okay. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, wildly overachieved. Baker Mayfield will likely regress to a means next season and play, a little worse, which means the Falcons are going to have a really good opportunity. I mean, I think the recipe is really simple for Atlanta. Go out, get Justin Fields, turn your offense up a notch, get an offensive mind, bring him in there, pay him whatever he needs. The Falcons are stupid talented. When you're talking about skill position guys, Bijan, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, insane.
That's kind of where it ends.
On defense too, they've got Jesse Bates. Their team is really talented. The offensive line is one of the best. It is insane to me that Arthur Smith underachieved this much. It's one of the most talented rosters, I think, in the league. And so whoever comes in here, a good riddance to Arthur Smith. I think he underachieved year in, year out with them, went 7-10 every year with them. And ironically, I think that if Arthur Smith had started Taylor Heineke from the start of the year, I think the Falcons win the South and he would still have a job, ironically enough. Also, really funny to me that you're complaining about getting drubbed by 30 points in your last... It just makes you look like a jackass. I don't care that Dennis Allen told you he was going into victory formation and they confirmed. Bro, you got beat by 30. What kind of point does it make that if they get another one? You got drubbed. Be butthurt, buddy.
Here's my take on that. Lining up in the victory formation to do it is just kind of disrespectful to the entire notion that is both teams conceding, okay, the game is over, the defense is going to let up, right? Nobody is trying to play with physicality. Nobody's expecting to be hit with physicality. Like, everybody is supposed to let up there, and then you go out there and run an actual football play. Like, if they just went for it straight up, I'd be okay with it. Of course, they had to dupe their own coach so that he didn't realize that they were doing that, because I guess that's what happens when you put famous Jameis at the helm. I didn't like the deception of it. To me, that did feel like a bit much, but Arthur Smith sucks, so whatever. El Bozo, get out of here.
Yeah, that sums it up.
Yeah. He was an extremely frustrating football coach, of course, and I think the clear path here is just bring in a better offensive mind. If it's Ben Johnson, who I think is actually a perfect fit if he wants to take this step up, because he's already done the job play calling for a run heavy scheme like the Falcons are going to maintain because of their line and their strength at the running back position. But then he brings a far more creative version of it. And if you can get a quarterback in there as well, like, they could take the leap quick, man. You make the Heineke point. I don't know. That's not even a mid-off Heineke versus Ritter. That's just depressing to think that those are your two options for an entire season. So I don't know if Ben Johnson would take this job, though, because he, along with Jim Harbaugh, those are probably going to be the top two candidates. Now that Vrabel's on the market as well, which we'll talk about, he will be as well. And the Falcons may not be the most intriguing situation, but it is a pretty good situation.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you get your quarterback in there and then you actually stop screwing around and make Bijan your clear RB1 instead of having him split carries with Algier evenly, and you actually utilize Drake London and Kyle Pitts to their utmost potential instead of using them as decoys more than anybody else, you can get Jonnu Smith and Matt Collins open, then I think that this is a team that definitely has the potential to take a leap to 10 wins or whatever next season. But more surprising, Logan, than Arthur Smith, who I think everybody wanted gone and expected gone, is that the Titans have parted ways with Mike Vrabel. What's your take on that?
Pretty shocking, honestly, especially considering where the Tennessee Titans were coming from when Vrabel took over and considering the heights that he took them to. Vrabel notched 4 straight winning seasons with Tennessee. He clinched a #1 seed with this team. And I think those teams for the most part overachieved. Now, granted, it's on the back of Derrick Henry dominating, being one of the most unstoppable forces, but he's winning games like that with Ryan Tannehill with pretty average rosters. You know what I mean? I don't think that the talent level was overwhelming to the point where it's like, oh, it's just Vrabel. And I really like him as a culture setter, as a leader of men. Again, this is a guy who played the game. He played for 3 of the most storied franchises in NFL history: the Pittsburgh Steelers, the New England Patriots, and the Kansas City Chiefs. So Vrabel gets it. He's a football guy that gets it. And I feel like I would enjoy playing for a guy like that, a guy that I would run through a wall for, Mike. And so that is where I don't understand it. I feel like you're going to have to build from the ground up, but that's what this signals to me. If you're ready to let a guy like Tennessee go, if Tennessee's ready to let a guy like Mike Vrabel go, to me it would be like Buffalo letting McDermott go, or it's a little different, and I'll explain why.
Because Vrabel's better.
Well, Vrabel is better, but I think the Bills are going to be able to contend with whoever they bring in because they have Josh Allen. And if the Steelers let Mike Tomlin, it would be more similar to the Steelers letting Mike Tomlin go, in my opinion. And what I mean by that is it signals to me that Tennessee is ready for a full launch into a rebuild under Will Levis.
Yeah.
They're going to probably stink next year. It's going to be the year to determine if Will Levis is your guy, which kind of sucks for him because I just like when there's more established situations for young guys. It's hard for them to build it up. But this signals to me, Carson, that the Titans are going to go out and get an offensive guy for Will Levis. That's the only thing that it signals to me. Defensive head coaches are great at establishing cultures. They're great at turning young guys into great defenders. Take a look at what DeMeco Ryans did. But it's hard to maximize your defense. And with a young quarterback, I think they're looking for a young offensive mind to bring in and lead the team. I still wouldn't have done it if I was Tennessee. And the reason I say that, though, is because I don't really know who's a better candidate for the job, Carson. Do you think that there's anybody that really sticks out to you? I think Vrabel would probably be the best available guy, which is why I think it's a bad move.
Totally. Well, I don't think it is a question of just pure coaching ability. Like you said, I think it's a philosophical difference of probably wanting to get younger and probably wanting to be more offensively oriented. I think that these Titans teams were at their best when you had Vrabel paired with a bright young offensive mind. If it was LaFleur for that one season, ironically, Arthur Smith was pretty damn good in Tennessee and really made the most of that offense. And then even after Arthur Smith, it was Todd Downing, and they were still really good. So that's not a great offensive mind. But Vrabel just can't carry the load there. And as they have regressed, their talent isn't very good. Like, that's what's sort of frustrating me about this is, like, sure, yeah, they have a couple big names because they have Derrick Henry and D-Hop, but those are aging stars who are far from their peak productivity. They're still very good, but not like the elite players at their positions that they used to be. And I think that I would just want Mike Vrabel to be the coach of my team. I think he prepares. I think he does build a culture. I think in game, he's really smart, good clock management, good decision making. And I thought consistently did make the most of their talent. Like, yeah, it was him paired with an offensive guy, but they were able to sustain that run for a bit across 3 different coordinators. Vrabel was the constant. And, they never had the talent of an 11-12 win team. And that's what they were for a couple years in a row. And now they've taken a step back. But I still think that you got to give Vrabel credit for what he did previously.
Oh, yeah.
And I think for keeping you at the very least competitive. So I would want him as the coach of my football team. However, I think the obvious landing spot for him is the New England Patriots because it seems like they're going to part ways with Belichick. I guess you could argue that they're another team that should just make that full 180. Let's commit to a young offensive guy, and I would be good with that, but I'm just not sure if that's in their organizational DNA, even beyond Bill and what he's established. Vrabel to me is like the closest thing to younger Belichick that you're going to get, right? Buttoned up, prepared, builds a culture, defensively oriented. And then if you pair him with the offensive mind, not Bill O'Brien, I think he's just a good coach. I think he's one of the few coaches who maybe isn't an offensive mind where I'm like, I still really like
Yeah.
what that guy brings to the organization.
You know, I don't hate that. I think that's actually a good idea. I just think that New England is going to go with Gerard Mayo. I think that's almost a foregone conclusion at this point that he's going to step in. Also a former Patriot inside linebacker.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued as to what happens with Steve Belichick post Bill Belichick because I think Steve's a good defensive mind too.
Yeah, maybe he'll get a haircut.
Yeah.
That's my dream for him.
My kind of ideal landing spot, I think, for Vrabel is Washington. I think that's the most logical landing spot for me with Vrabel. Like,
Yeah,
I think
sure.
Washington, and they've hired, I don't know if you heard, Washington has reportedly hired Bob Myers, over from Golden State, or former Golden State.
Yeah.
Was he assistant GM? Was that his title? What was his role?
No, he was GM.
GM. And then they brought in Brad Spielman, I think from Minnesota, and they're going to do the hiring process. To me, Washington is a team that, kind of similar to the Detroit Lions when they hired Dan Campbell, really need an organizational reset and cultural tempo setter, a guy that is going to establish a culture there. Like, I think Washington was doomed under Dan Snyder. No matter really what they did under Dan Snyder was going to matter because he was the guy pulling the strings. And now that they have finally freed themselves from the shackles of Dan Snyder, I think it's time to rise like a phoenix and, flap your wings. And I think the best guy to help them get there is Vrabel because we've seen him. He did it with Tennessee. He established a culture, and I think he's young enough to where he can do that with another team. And I think that I just wish Washington hadn't given up some of the defensive assets that they gave up, like a Montez Sweat, like a Chase Young. Because can you imagine, man, Mike Vrabel stepping into a defense with those kind of guys on the D-line? That's the only issue I had with Washington this season. But I think it's a good fit. I think they would be mutually beneficial.
That is really interesting because Washington is sort of in a predicament here where now they've just let go of Rivera. And you have Eric Bieniemy, who, like, for a half decade, it felt like was the hot NFL coaching candidate because he was associated with the Kansas City Chiefs offense. And then he was the play caller for, like, one of the worst offenses in football this year. And sure, not a good quarterback talent, but pretty solid skill position talent. Like, not great there either. But it was not an impressive debut from him apart from Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. So you can't really bring in like Bobby Slowick, right? You can't be like, hey, we're going to bring in this young offensive mind and keep Bieniemy. It's going to be either Bieniemy stays in charge of the offense and they bring in a defensive coach like Vrabel, or after 1 year, you're just immediately done with Bieniemy. So if they do stick with him, then I think that Vrabel is like an awesome hire. I really, really, really think that Jim Harbaugh would also be good. He could bring in a whole staff. I think Jim Harbaugh would be good anywhere. I mean, I think he'd be good anywhere. I'm a big Harbaugh believer. I think Jim Harbaugh is incredibly smart. I think that he has led to winning every single place that he has ever been. Like, that dude is going to make a splash in the NFL. But considering he is going to have his pick of the litter, why not go to where the franchise quarterback is? Why not go to the Chargers with Justin Herbert? Yeah, that's what I think is most likely.
My favorite thing about Harbaugh is that he wears the same clothes every day like a cartoon character.
Dude, also like Zuck, like the Zuck. Why? Can't expend the mental energy on picking out what to wear.
Can't waste the energy.
Steve Jobs is where they got it from. No, I don't think Zuck does that, actually. Maybe I just got my tech nerds mixed up. Maybe he stole it from
Wozniak?
Steve Jobs as well.
Maybe it's Wozniak?
No, Jobs is the originator of it all. But Jobs' fit was tough.
Yeah.
Jobs was dripping. Harbaugh, not so much. The khakis, the polo. But I'm happy for him winning the Natty. I was really hoping Washington would win because I've been a Pac-12 fan my entire life, and now it's dead and it's been ripped from us. And I thought that'd be so sick for them to go out on a high note. But if it was going to go to somebody else, I think that Harbaugh is a guy who has been so consistently subjected to criticism. It's because he's been so consistently good, but he hasn't gotten the one championship at either level, which is breaking news, really, really hard to do. And now he's done it. And
it's U of M. I mean, those people live and breathe football. I mean, is, especially when you have the rivalries that they do with Ohio State, and that's a huge monkey off of Harbaugh's back, where it would be kind of cool for him to go out on a high note. You know what I mean?
Oh, I think he is. I think he is. But there's some weird stuff going on where, like, there's talk of the NFL instituting whatever punishment the NCAA gives
That's
him
so dumb.
for the sign stealing thing. So, like, he would still have to serve a suspension of some kind. That's ridiculous. I think he's done with college football. I think he's coming back to the NFL. And I do think that the Chargers make the most sense for him, because why not get your franchise quarterback? And Sean McDermott, no matter how many allusions he makes to 9/11, is going to keep his job, just because the season ended up getting saved, and he does have that big old extension through 2028.